Good morning, and welcome to UANI's 5th Annual Iran Summit. I'm Mark Wallace, the Chief Executive Officer of UANI. We are delighted to once again host this event, which will feature insights and debate on Iran from key experts and policymakers from the United States, Europe, the Arab world, and Israel, after a year-long hiatus caused by the pandemic. It's hard for me to believe that this year's summit comes during UANI's 13th year of work. In 2008, the late Ambassador Richard Holbrooke and Ambassador Dennis Ross, two great friends and true titans of American diplomacy, joined me in founding United Against Nuclear Iran. Throughout that time, and to this day, our team works day in and day out to highlight and to counter the dangers posed by Iran's illicit nuclear program, its quest for regional dominance, state sponsorship of terrorism, and its egregious human rights abuses. Consistently, UANI has led the effort to economically pressure Iran's regime. We have devised robust sanctions, launched literally thousands of individual campaigns to international businesses, persons, trade delegations, ship owners, and captains of individual vessels to end their business with the regime, warning of the legal, financial, and reputational risks of trade and investment in Iran. I'm proud of UANI's work. Tehran is now well known as far too risky a locale for global capital, thereby inhibiting revenue flows to the regime. UANI has sought to ensure that the Iranian leadership faces a binary choice. Its economy, which is dominated by the IRGC, will continue to founder until Iran's regime changes its behavior or has changed itself. For me, the debate on the JCPOA and a potential 2.0 version of the JCPOA is simple. The JCPOA was a seriously flawed agreement. Iran's malign behavior increased in its wake, and 2021 is far different than 2015. No deal is better than another bad deal to revive the JCPOA. President Raisi is the new face, but of course, the Ayatollah's policies haven't changed. They haven't changed for the last 42 years. Iran can only withstand economic pressure through sanctions-busting schemes designed to get its illicit oil into the global marketplace. Hold on. The international community should consistently and emphatically prevent these sanctions avoidance schemes. Iran's malign behavior has been consistent for those 42 years, but the US and its allies' response has not. That must change. We should be united in a consistent effort to fully economically isolate Iran's regime. Before we get started with the program, I have a few housekeeping points to make. I'm going to read these. The webinar is being recorded. However, microphones, cameras, and the chat function are disabled for attendees. For some of our sessions, after remarks from our speakers, we will have a Q&A segment. Attendees can use the Q&A function to submit questions. Please name a specific speaker to whom the question is directed for the moderator to pose the questions to the speakers. Following each session, you will be directed on the screen to proceed to the next session with the click of a button. You may also navigate to the live session through the homepage navigation. And now I'd like to turn over the program to my dear friend and UANI's chairman, former United States Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator Lieberman was the Attorney General of Connecticut, sometimes I forget that, of Connecticut before serving for 24 years in the Senate, where he is deeply respected for his commitment to bipartisan policymaking. Senator Lieberman's principled approach, predicated on civility and willingness to compromise across the aisle, is sorely missed in Washington these days. He is a great friend, a mentor, and a leader to all of us. Sometimes thought of as a throwback to a different era in politics, we prefer to call him a national treasure. My great friend, Senator Joseph Lieberman.
Well, I couldn't ask for much more than that as an introduction. Thank you, Ambassador Wallace, my dear friend Mark, for your gracious words. Thank you for all you've done to create and sustain and strengthen UANI. You were not just present at the creation, you were the creator along with Richard Holbrooke and Dennis Ross of an organization which, as you just said, had a clear purpose, which was to stop the Islamic Republic of Iran from gaining regional hegemonic power and from having nuclear weapons. And you all chose that goal, not by accident, but because you rightly assessed Iran as a clear and present danger then, 13 years ago, to our allies in the region, and indeed to ourselves. And of course, as a power that offended our most sacred values, beginning with human rights. If anything, in the 13 years since you founded UANI, the reasons that motivated you to found it, which are all based on the behavior of the regime that controls this great country now, but hopefully, and I'm confident, not for long, the behavior of the Islamic Republic of Iran has gotten even worse. It continues to be, as we know by the judgment of our own State Department, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. It has intervened aggressively in the governments and states of neighboring countries and caused untold human misery and death in places like Syria, is now, through its agents, contributing to the collapse of a great country. Lebanon has stirred up trouble and again death in Iraq. Its support of Hamas and Hezbollah has inflamed relations between Israeli and its Arab neighbors in a way that probably would not otherwise be inflamed. And the same is true of Yemen. And it is true, as you've said, that since the revolution of 1979, the government of Iran, which is an autocratic, totalitarian government, really ruled by one person, the supreme leader, has not changed except to get worse. And the worst is now with the supreme leader Khamenei choosing Ibrahim Raisi as the new president of Iran, an extremist, really a murderer, and someone who has cleared the government cabinet of the Islamic Republic of Iran of anyone who might arguably have been considered a moderate. This is a government of extremists. Worse now with the supreme leader Khamenei choosing. I'm hearing feedback, folks. As much as I like my words, I don't have to hear them twice. And anyway, the reality of the threat that Iran places to us, to our neighbors, to the world, has grown even worse. That's why we in UANI opposed the Iran nuclear agreement in 2015, but it went into effect. And then, surprisingly, President Trump withdrew America from it, which I thought was the right thing to do. Now, the Biden administration has pursued re-entry into the JCPOA with encouragingly and increasingly some doubts expressed within the administration about whether an agreement is possible with such a regime that is so totalitarian, so anti-American, and so full of people who have caused death and destruction. Increasingly, I hope those voices that say no, an agreement with this regime in Iran is not possible will prevail, but it's not at all clear. And today, with the remarkable bringing together of experts and leaders, we have an opportunity, I think, to really learn a lot about where we are today and why we in UANI hope that the administration does not go forward to negotiate again an agreement with Iran that is even worse than the 2015 JCPOA. This is a remarkable gathering of leaders and experts, which I'm very grateful to Mark Wallace and the staff of UANI for bringing together, and to all of you who have joined us, from the Prime Minister of Israel to the one of the leading diplomats in the Arab world, the Bahraini ambassador. We have 3 ambassadors, former UN ambassador, U.S. ambassadors to the UN ambassadors, Bolton, Haley, and our own Mark Wallace. We have loads of experts, and we have a very bipartisan group from the Congress of the United States, Democrats, Senators Ben Cardin and Bob Menendez, and Republican Lindsey Graham. So I think it's going to be a very informative and I hope motivational day of speakers. I want to, because I spend so much time both worried about and working against the corrosive partisanship in American government, I want to say about a word about one of the really negative effects of the JCPOA of 2015, which is not only was it a bad agreement, and I'm glad that we're out of it and hope we don't go back into it, because I can't imagine a good agreement being negotiated with the current regime in Tehran. But that 2015 agreement also broke the long-standing bipartisan consensus in Washington about our policy toward Iran. It remained one of the few areas of bipartisanship in increasingly partisan Washington. And the fact that the last program, the last panel on our program today is Senator Bob Menendez, Democratic chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Lindsey Graham, one of the real Republican leaders in the Senate on foreign and defense policy, is really a hopeful sign. And they are presenting a proposal, an idea that is truly bipartisan for how to deal with and change our Iran policy. I want to say a final word about this. Last week, the cause of a bipartisan foreign policy toward Iran received most unexpected support from a most unlikely source, and that is the new foreign minister in Raisi's government, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, who said that if the talks begin again about a new JCPOA, that Iran would demand assurances that, and I quote, Washington will not renege on the deal again. Well, I'm sure that the foreign minister of Iran is not an expert on the American Constitution or the processes of government, but the only way to make sure that any agreement in foreign policy with the United States, including one possibly with Iran, is permanent, is to have it sent to the Senate as a treaty, and which would require a 2/3 vote for ratification, and would force a return to the kind of bipartisanship that not only strengthens America's role in foreign policy, but as the Iranian foreign minister says, enables countries with which we have entered into international agreements to have confidence that they will last. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution requires that. Now, I know that it would complicate in the eyes of the Biden administration the agreement that they have to negotiate, but it's worth the extra effort to return to bipartisanship in foreign policy and have both this agreement with Iran and any other international agreements last, and have a kind of support at home that is not bipartisan. There is historic precedent for this, which is that almost every nuclear arms control agreement that the United States has negotiated and agreed on, particularly with the former Soviet Union or Russia, has been sent to the Senate as a treaty for ratification. And when they are ratified, they last. So that's a hopeful, perhaps idealistic note, but I believe that Senators Menendez and Graham will make a proposal that heads in exactly that direction. So this is going to be a day, I hope some of you can stay for the whole day. I hope others will just come and go as your schedule allows. But in any case, I think there is a lot you will learn today, and hopefully what you learn will motivate you to go forward with UANI to support a better future in our relations with Iran, and the development now, as many of the panelists will discuss, of a plan B, if and when, I would say, it becomes clear that there's not a real opportunity to negotiate an effective and reasonable and fair JCPOA 2. With that, I thank you, and I wish you all a very good day.